the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you're answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
Today's seminar is sponsored by H2M Architects and Engineers, who are one of the co-sponsors of the UNU Sustainability Seminar Series. Joe Flynn from H2M is here with us. He will introduce his colleague, Katie Stone, who will be a speaker today. Joe?
Oh, thank you, Dibs. So again, my name is Joe Flynn. We, H2M, have provided a number of webinars over the last probably 4 or 5 years. Katie is an architect with H2M. She's been with H2M 15 plus years. I would consider her, she and I work often on many things. She's LEED certified, well certified. I would consider her a subject matter expert in the library and municipal side on K-12, higher ed, and municipal market for libraries. So I know Katie is always well prepared. She's very on top of things, so I'm really excited to hear some of the things that she has to share. So Katie Stone, you're on.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe, for that introduction. And thank you to Stevens for having me. I really appreciate it. It's nice to meet you all. So as Joe said, I'm a licensed architect at H2M in our Melville, Long Island office. I have been here for about 16 years. I started as an intern and here I am. Currently have dual roles right now in I'm an assistant studio director in our education discipline, where I work with a team of architects executing mainly K through 12 schoolwork. I'm also a deputy market director in a municipal market, overseeing all of our firm's library projects. Some of my recent projects, I'll just give a really brief overview, include recent renovation and addition for a 45,000 square foot library in Oceanside, a new branch library in Patchogue, New York, and then a children's room renovation in Garden City to modernize their existing space. But over my time here, I've done many different types of architecture. I've done some firehouses and ambulance corps, a lot of public agency work, some post offices, but again, mainly public sector work, which is why the subject of our presentation today is sustainable design in public facilities. So a tiny bit more about my educational background. I have a Bachelor of Science in Architecture and a Master's in Architecture from Northeastern University in Boston. As I mentioned, I started working in H2M as an intern and through my school's co-op program, and have been here since. At times, though not right now, I also teach some college courses at Farmingdale State College, including architectural design courses and then some CAD and Revit classes. I'm really excited to be here talking about sustainability today. It's something I've been passionate about since I was in college. I became a LEED AP while I was still in school. And then about 2 years ago, I think I became a well-accredited professional. So I'm sure most of you have heard of LEED, which stands for Leadership, Energy, and Environmental Design. It's the most widely used green building rating system in the world. And I'll touch on the WELL building standard a little bit later again. But this in general is similar to LEED, but it's more focused on sustainability related to the human experience. This is not progressing. Why is this not progressing? There we go, sorry. So today's discussion will cover sustainable design in public buildings. So we're going to touch briefly on what is sustainability, why is sustainability especially important within the public realm, select design approach methods, obstacles that we commonly face in achieving sustainable design in public buildings, benefits of sustainable design, and then the role of the designer. So what, and I just want to note, this is not by any means an exhaustive list of topics that I'm going to cover. Rather, it's really just a collection of my own opinions and experience as an architect in the field. And I also just wanted to say that if at any time anyone has a question or comment, please feel free to type it into the chat. We can discuss as we go. This doesn't need to be very formal. So I want to start off by asking, what does sustainability mean to you? This is definitely a multifaceted concept. And I think depending on your background and your area of focus or expertise, I think this term can have significantly different meanings to different people. If anyone's interested, I just wanted to ask if you want to take a minute in the chat to type out, in 1 or 2 sentences, what sustainability means to you. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And while you're doing that, I'll give my definition from an architectural perspective. So for me, and it was really honestly very hard to boil this down. I could probably talk for about an hour just about what I think sustainability means. But in one sentence, I think it's design that promotes a positive environmental impact and responds to the triple bottom line of people, planet, and prosperity. In order for this effort to achieve longevity, I agree that it's just really imperative for all 3 of these pillars to be considered. And why do I care about this? I guess I've always cared deeply about the environment and our role as humans in shaping the future of our planet. But now I have kids, and mostly I would like for them to have the opportunity to live in, at minimum, a habitable and at best, a prosperous world. So I don't know if I don't have access to the chat right now. Does anyone have access to read maybe a few of the responses that, if any, came in?
Yeah, like Rahul says that it's increasing the longevity of diminishing resources. And Khalid, like, why does Katie not have access to chat? Like, could you check on that?
Let's see. Oh, I do. I just found it. I'm sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
Technology is not my strong suit. Yeah, increasing longevity of diminishing resources. Exactly. I've always find it interesting to ask people from different disciplines what sustainability means to them. I think as an architect or as any other role, you become kind of, honed in on, your sort of piece of the pie. So another one came in, ensuring resources for future generations. Yeah, exactly. These are all great. Reducing environmental impact of buildings and utilizing resources more efficiently, right? So a lot of mentions of resources. We live on a planet with limited resources, and we want to make sure that we're using them to the best of our ability and to allow future generations to use them as well. Okay. So one more, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability. Yeah, this is like the textbook definition of it. I see this one all the time, compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Exactly. Okay, so let's move on. Why is sustainable design important in the public sector? So there is a really great book by Ray Oldenburg called The Great Good Place, if you've ever heard of it. In this book, Oldenburg explores the importance of what he dubbed the third place. So that is community or public spaces that are separate from home, which would be considered the first place, and work, which would be considered the second place. This concept is similar in spirit to Jane Jacobs' theory that she explores in another book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, which is also great if you haven't read it, where she asserts that diversity and human connection is vital to a vibrant and successful neighborhood. So these third place places are open and available to all, regardless of economic status, home life, background, and other demographic factors. These spaces might include local public libraries, parks, community centers, community college spaces, and other places where the public might congregate. And it's important to design these spaces sustainably so they, and I have some bullet points here, make proper use of public funding. We want to make sure that we're putting our tax dollars to work, right? Serve as an example of good design and hopefully as an educational tool. Sustainable buildings can convey and symbolize that the stakeholders are mindful of that triple bottom line and have concern for people, planet, and profit. The image here on the left shows a digital screen in a LEED certified building that displays efficiency metrics. And this can serve to inform building occupants of the efforts taken by the owner to be more sustainable, and then educate them also on best practices. We also want to provide a safe, healthy place for people to spend time and contribute positively to the surrounding environment. Okay. So next, I'm going to go over some design approaches to achieving sustainability in public buildings. Again, as I mentioned before, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just kind of some selections that I either use frequently or that I consider real, best practices for the industry. So first one I have here is understand that code represents minimum requirements. The primary responsibility of a licensed architect is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of buildings' occupants, right? So to do this, we follow the building code. This is the thing we go back to all the time that we're constantly referring to. But we need to understand that code represents the minimum requirements, not necessarily the optimal design method. Codes are always evolving. And what's interesting is we'll typically eventually incorporate requirements that are usually initially seen as drastic measures when they're first introduced. So for example, R-value minimums for insulation keep increasing, as well as minimum efficiency standards to mechanical systems. So a lot of times we'll see baselines issued in, like a LEED version, right? And they're something to strive for. Over time, that becomes just the bare minimum, and then we have to establish new targets to strive for. But if we're endeavoring to be sustainable, a building that simply meets code will not usually perform any better than the baseline for that typology. So this is where designers need to be innovative in their own design methods and or rely on third-party systems such as LEED or WELL. Okay. The next design approach I have here is collaboration. If you've ever heard of integrative design, this is a real great strategy where all members of the project team are brought on board early on, and it's a proven method to achieve sustainable design. When various perspectives are brought to the table at the beginning of the project, rather than in the middle or at the end, you have the opportunity to weigh alternatives and investigate how there might be co-benefits to one method versus another. And the people that you want to bring to the table include the owner, any other stakeholders that they have, architects, engineers, sustainable building consultants, facilities and maintenance staff are the people who are going to be taking care of this building after it's done, contractors, and then community members if input is desired. Next one here is to be future-minded and adaptable. So I have here an example project. This is a recently completed library it's the Mastix Merches Shirley Community Library. It's a very long name. And this library features a raised flooring system and movable partitions. So the raised flooring system allows them to easily adapt their power, data, and Wi-Fi points of access, depending on any layout changes that might happen in the future. And we also have some movable partitions, which you can see here. Those are those glass partitions that separate that main area from those two rooms beyond. And that allows them to create either smaller or larger spaces depending on their needs, and they can make those changes, by the hour or by the day or for long term. When we're designing a library or any other public building, we're making every effort to meet our clients' current and anticipated future needs. But it's critical to understand that over time, their program is going to evolve and that building will need to be modified. But by planning for the unknown and making contingencies for that, we allow for changes to be easily accommodated, and that can limit future construction efforts and waste, also save the client in construction costs and downtime during that work. Okay, so the next one I have here is to match the programmatic and functional needs of the building to sustainable design strategies. So I wanted to bring this up. It's always easier to achieve a goal when all facets of your decision-making process are kind of moving in the same direction. So in general, we laid out this building so that the program would work in concert with passive design strategies. If I didn't mention, sorry, this is a new, roughly 6,000 square foot new branch library in Patchogue. It's a single story slab on grade. Has a lower level 2 building. So we wanted an east-west orientation. That's kind of standard good practice for passive design, with more windows located to the north and south to minimize solar glare and heat gain. So we located spaces that don't need access to natural light, like the toilet rooms, the elevator, and the mechanical space on east-west facing facades. We also wanted an outdoor meeting space. And by locating this on the southern portion of the building, that's that kind of brownish square that you see at the bottom right corner, we oriented this to get, sunlight. New York, this is in New York, and it's definitely a 3-season place to have outdoor spaces. So we wanted to maximize access to sunlight, but the building will also provide shade at certain times during the day. Then the building will also block some prevailing winds to make it a more comfortable place to be. At the north, which is at the top of the page, there is a nice field beyond this. So views to that field were provided for several individual workstations. And then to reiterate the point about adaptability from the last example, we built out an unfinished lower level so that this can easily be fit out at a later date. When this was built, they did not have the funding to purchase, the finishes and the furnishings required to finish this out. But at least we eliminated a future major construction project, which would have had further site disturbance and disruption to their operations. Okay, oops. Sorry. So the last, I have one other slide here with just a few other points I wanted to make. A lot of times we have sustainable design strategies as I call them add-ons. Many times we design standalone systems such as like a photovoltaic system, which is solar panels, or ground source heat pump, which is geothermal system, where they're not necessarily integral with the project or are easily replaced with a non-sustainable comparable system. Many times when we bid projects, we list these items as alternates where the owner can elect to award them or not award them depending on how the bids come in. And when we do this, we make it easy for sustainability to be kind of stripped from the project due to, value engineering or other factors or things that happen down the line. So a better approach is to use design methods that are more integral with the overall building design. The passive design strategies that I mentioned on the last slide is a good example of that. Okay, so the next bullet point here is to provide dual functionality to save on material and square footage. I'm always a fan of things that can serve more than one purpose. The image here on the left and the bottom shows a window film on an exterior storefront system that serves 3 different purposes. So it filters natural light, it provides a degree of privacy for the classroom that this is in from the outdoor deck adjacent to it, and it makes this bird-safe glass, so we don't have birds flying into the reflective glazing and being harmed. And then the last topic I just wanted to mention is biophilic design. I'm not going to get into this. I could spend an entire session talking about biophilic design, but just wanted to say that it's design based on naturally occurring materials, colors, patterns, and systems that can help achieve a sustainable design. And it often incorporates greenery, natural light, warm materials such as wood. And on the image on the top left, you can see that we've incorporated a green wall and some, warm earthy tones. There's a wood ceiling and wall surface. This is a hospital, so the idea is that the biophilic design will make people feel more comfortable, and this would feel like a healing place as opposed to a more sterile environment like hospitals tend to be sometimes. Okay, so we just talked about some methods that we can use to design sustainably. I wanted to go over some obstacles to sustainable design. I will say that I've been in the industry for since like 2008, and over that period of time, the obstacles have not necessarily reduced, but they have definitely changed in nature. I am spending less time convincing people that sustainability is necessary or good, and more time talking about nuanced issues, which is promising, but there's still a long way to go. So we're going to talk about some obstacles now. So the first thing I want to talk about is a lack of clearly defined goals and lack of consensus. Many times we work with clients who are not really sure what they want. They're not sure they want to commit to sustainability. Oftentimes we work with multiple stakeholders who fail to make decisions regarding sustainable design early enough in the design process or at all. And you can't achieve a goal that hasn't been identified. So it's really, really important to be upfront in your conversations with your clients about what their sustainability goals are and how we can all work together to achieve them. Other times a decision has been made, but the bar is set very low. One of my favorite quotes regarding sustainability is from William McDonough, who wrote the book Cradle to Cradle. And it's a concept about being less bad rather than good. The quote is, but to be less bad is to accept things as they are, to believe that poorly designed, dishonorable, destructive systems are the best humans can do. This is the ultimate failure of the be less bad approach, a failure of the imagination. And then he also has another quote I'll read quickly. If our goal is to head north, but we are driving at 80 miles per hour, and we eventually slow down to 20 miles per hour, we're still going in the wrong direction, right? So we want to not be less bad, we want to be good, and we have to set out early in the process to make sure that we do that. Another obstacle is the misconception that sustainable design is too expensive. This is generally speaking not true, especially again earlier in my career it was more true. It's becoming less true. There's evidence is growing that sustainable buildings provide financial rewards for building owners, operators, and occupants. They generally have lower operating costs for energy, water, maintenance, repair or renovation, and other operating expenses. And these reduced costs do not have to come at the expense of higher first costs. Through integrated design and innovative use of sustainable materials and equipment, the first cost of a sustainable building can be the same as or lower than that of a traditional building. Okay, funding. So this seems to contradict what I just said, because I just mentioned sustainable buildings don't need to cost more. But the assumption for the baseline of design here is good design. So I equate sustainable design to good design. And sometimes if adequate funding is not available for a project, there is an impulse to cut corners, and good design cannot compete in terms of cost with cheap construction techniques. So when we're budgeting, we really need to set clear expectations for the final result and make sure we have adequate budget allocated. Another obstacle is hesitancy to embrace new products or technologies. Many of our clients do not want to be seen as a guinea pig for new products or ideas. Sometimes we get clients who are super innovative and are really willing to find new things and try them out, and they see that as a point of pride to do that. But then other times we have clients who that makes them wary. Something really simple. For the longest time, we were having trouble moving away from specifying VCT flooring toward a more sustainable alternative, because the owners and the facility managers were just so familiar with it. It was prevalent in, like so many different types of public buildings, universities, community centers, schools. It was everywhere. They knew it was durable and how to maintain it. And sometimes it can be stressful to take on something new. So as a designer, you need to be persistent, do your research, and educate your client. Okay, next one here is multiple evolving stakeholders and decision makers. As I mentioned above, goals are most difficult to achieve when they're not clearly defined. We may need to navigate opposing opinions. So for example, there may be a member of a board that you're working with a political opposition to certain programs or incentives, or there may be people who are unwilling to invest in systems with payback periods that extend beyond their tenure on that board. A good example of this is a ground source heat pump system where the payback period might be over 10 years. So again, it might be the right application for that project, but you just have to educate and communicate as the best line of defense. The last one here, slightly different than the private sector. I would say the public sector design often has more highly regulated design, permitting, and bidding processes. Oftentimes these are really time-consuming processes that can span over years. Over this period of time, escalation might eat up your project budget, priorities may shift. And this is why I mentioned before, not having sustainable design features that can easily be removed from the project, because if you end up needing to find some money in the budget, you don't want it to be the sustainable design elements that are the first things to go. During construction, there's often an opportunity for contractors to submit substitution requests for products and systems that were selected specifically for their sustainable properties. There are ways to guard against this, but the process of researching and documenting the sustainable benefits of certain materials or products over others is time-consuming and sometimes difficult to uphold if all of the members of your team are not on the same page. And, you might have a contractor tell your client, hey, it's great that your architect specified this type of insulation, but it's expensive and it has a long lead time and I can get you a much cheaper product in less time. So it's sometimes hard to combat that. So again, communication, education is the key. Okay, so I'm going to go over some benefits of sustainability in public buildings. So the first benefit that I have here is improved health and mental well-being. Before I mentioned the WELL building standard as a people-centric rating system with a focus on well-being and performance to supplement sustainability and efficiency covered by LEED or similar standards. It's a performance-based system where your project design is awarded points based on metrics across 10 different concepts. And while a sustainable building designed with people in mind doesn't need to submit under this rating system to achieve success, the research outlined in this guide and the guiding principles here are extremely useful to understand. So if you haven't heard of the WELL building standard, I highly recommend you give it a read. The 10 concepts outlined here are under WELL are air, water, nourishment, light, movement, thermal comfort, sound, materials, mind, and community. So there are many ways to achieve the desired results. A few of my favorite examples include introducing a monumental stair centrally located to encourage physical movement instead of taking an elevator, or installing a circadian-based lighting system to mimic daylight to minimize disruption to the building occupants' REM sleep cycle. I have just a couple excerpts here that I wanted to mention from a study called Potential of High Performance Workplaces for Boosting Worker Productivity. It was published in a September edition of Building and Environment, and analyzes a data set of occupant responses comparing performance between WELL-certified and non-WELL-certified workplaces. And in short, the WELL-certified buildings performed significantly better. So in the WELL buildings, the occupants were more satisfied with access to sunlight, with acoustical privacy, with connection to their outdoor environment, with their lighting options, thermal comfort, and the overall air quality and movement. There were also less sick building syndrome complaints, and then also lower musculoskeletal complaints than in the non-WELL buildings. What I like about WELL is it's totally science-backed. So as you read through the standard, you see how all of these contaminants or harmful substances or design decisions affect all of the different systems in your body. So you really kind of understand the why of what we're doing. And in general, WELL-certified buildings occupants also report higher levels of satisfaction with their organization's culture of health, with significant differences found in levels of satisfaction around inclusive culture, health promotion programs, positive environment, and engagement. And this ties back, I think, to providing measurable improvement to those public or third places. It's that overall kind of intangible benefits that you get from sustainable design. Okay, and I also just wanted to mention, on top of the wellness, just providing stimulating and attractive environments. I think that the two pictures I have here both have natural elements involved in them, and by providing this connection to nature, if we go back to ancient civilizations, we see this concept executed at the Babylon Hanging Gardens. You see this at Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, where there's this really clear connection to the ground and the horizon and the adjacent waterfall. The project on the right is an H2M project for Hempstead Lake State Park. It's a nature education and resiliency center. So visitors come here to learn about the local natural environment. And one of the things we tried to do here was to provide views to the natural environment from this building and a direct connection to nature to help support that educational goal. Okay, so some other benefits of sustainability include cost savings. So when the team strategizes early on, cost savings can be realized using data-driven solutions. So for example, a really robust, triple glazed fenestration system combined with a super efficient HVAC system might have really high upfront costs. But if you analyze the use of these two systems together, that tighter envelope that you get from that fenestration system can potentially reduce the loads on the HVAC system. So you might not need to have as big of a unit. So the costs can potentially be reduced while at the same time achieving the optimal results. When we start analyzing these synergies early on, they can be understood and help drive design decisions. And this is coming back again to that integrative design approach, where if you wait to involve your envelope specialists or your mechanical engineers until the end of the project, you most likely missed out on the opportunity to capitalize on these synergies. Also, if you involve a contractor or a construction manager in the early planning stages, we might be able to select construction types, methods, or phasing to streamline the schedule, to minimize site disturbance, and potentially reduce construction waste also. The last thing I want to mention here was increased property values and potential for local economic growth. One of the great things about sustainable buildings is that they tend to favor local sources of material and labor, further stimulating the local economy. Additionally, if we look at, you can look at a building individually, or you can look at it as, a piece of the larger fabric of each community. And sustainable design typically means lower energy consumption, which can equate to lower pollution levels, as well as preserve natural resources, wildlife habitats, scenic vistas, other environmental assets, and any or all of these elements can make a location more attractive for potential residents and business owners, and therefore make the overall property more valuable. Okay, I just wanted to touch on the role of the designer in facilitating successful sustainable design solutions. I wanted to mention the AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. It's the largest design organization in the world. It's a professional association that many of my colleagues belong to, and their mission statement includes the verbiage, AIA is working to transform the day-to-day practice of architecture to achieve a zero carbon, resilient, healthy, just, equitable built environment for everyone. And I just think it's really important to note that, as an architectural profession, that mission statement is really largely about sustainability. I would say half of those words in that mission statement, relate directly back to sustainability. And this is really important. There's one stat that I'm sure you've heard before. In the US, nearly 40% of greenhouse gases can be attributed to carbon produced by buildings during construction and everyday, heating, cooling, and lighting loads. And, you know, because we hear this stuff so often, I think it's easy to become kind of desensitized to it. But as a design professional, it's important to be continuously cognizant of these facts, because it just reiterates the real and measurable impact that our decisions can have on the environment. You know, generally speaking, the most sustainable method of design is not to build anything, right? But the fact is that our society requires building stock to function. So, you know, I choose to see my role as an architect as a facilitator of good design, and, you know, regularly choose to engage in education, collaboration, and to, you know, maintain that passion that drives us to make good decisions. Education is really important. You need to continuously learn about new products, technologies, methods of design, and, you know, pass that along to colleagues and clients. One of the reasons that I really like teaching or participating in stuff like this is that, you know, really kind of forces you to continuously do research. This is really important. You know, collaboration is important. Again, I've mentioned this a few times, but engaging the entire project team early on to have the right conversations, you know, that is typically the role of an architect. We kind of are the overall facilitators of these projects, so that role falls on us a lot of the time. And, you know, passion and persistence, I think it's just important to continue to care and keep caring, even in the face of those obstacles that we went over before. So I'm doing really good on time. Sorry, it's went a little quicker than I thought. But in conclusion, I wanted to actually go over another quote from William McDonough that I mentioned before. Design is the first signal of human intention. When we look at plastics in our environment, if it's our intention to do these things, then we must question our intention. If it's not our intention, then what's our plan? The question becomes how we can behave in a way that works. So if I could, again, we started by talking about, you know, what is sustainability? I think, you know, intention is super important when you talk about sustainability. You know, what are we doing now? What do we want our profession and our world to look like in 10, 20, you know, 50 years? That all starts with intention. And, you know, as students, you're in such an optimal situation to affect change. You know, when you intern or when you graduate and you enter the workforce, you'll be joining people that have been in the industry, you know, including myself, for a long time. And it's human nature to revert to familiarity and to continue to do things the way that you always have done them. And, you know, with your focus on sustainability, your research, your passion for your field, I think you have a real opportunity to raise issues and provide out-of-the-box thinking to make things better, and work with, you know, intention, as mentioned above. So that concludes what I have for the presentation today. Let's say thank you again, and I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments if anyone has any.
Absolutely. That was really an informative presentation. Thanks, Katie.